So power is the next big thing. We must support it. And the reason this must happen is that if we don't do that, then our over-dependence on government to provide jobs will even become more so. And we know they can't do it. It's the SMEs who actually are the largest employers of labor. And when we mean labor, I'm not just talking about your regular 9-to-5 jobs. I'm talking about your average entrepreneur who is able to go out, work with their wares, do what they have to do, and come back and earn a day's wage. And if we have those kinds of people in multiples, and Nigeria is a beehive of activity, it portends very good. Then we quickly look at infrastructure. Infrastructure has not done very well. But then I quickly add, this has come from decades and decades of neglect. Just think about every sector. Is it aviation? Is it power? Is it sports? Is it everything? Even now we're hearing even the military and all that. So the infrastructure deficit is huge. Now, no country truly attains growth without having your infrastructure in place. So going forward, I mean, the march has started. There's a lot going on now with the repairs of most of our roads, at least from the last statistics provided by the Minister of Works. There has been almost a 40% improvement on most of our motorable roads in Nigeria, which is good because you need people to move back and forth. But we need to talk about railways, because the largest transporter of goods is a rail system. We've revamped the old railways. That's fine, that's better, but that's not what we're talking about now. We really need high-speed trains, passenger, goods, and all that. You can imagine trains running the length and breadth of Nigeria in different directions. It should not be the case that if you want to fly to destinations that should ordinarily take you 2-3 hours, that you have to fly, sorry. It doesn't make sense for you to do that. And that's what we find, that the easiest means of transportation today is by air. And we know that's not a coffee shop for many people, to just fly by air. So the infrastructure deficit must be dealt with. Telecoms is one of the infrastructure that's likely been dealt with, so we need to deal with power. Then we look at road and all the other forms of the multimodal transportation forms. So it's a long journey from where we have started.
Yeah, a long way to go. But one would ask, 15 years, isn't that enough for us to have performed better than we are doing? You did mention corruption. Are we really doing enough to curb this corruption? And I'm taking you from an institution where you are a stakeholder, the judiciary. What are they doing towards helping curb this corruption? Are they really doing enough? And of course, just as you've noted, once we're able to tackle the problem of corruption, our economy will be better for it.
The judiciary, as I told you, is should not be alien to so many other challenges we have in the country. But just so I don't give them too many excuses, we must not shut our eyes to the fact that many of our judges operate under extremely difficult conditions. So perhaps it's part of what we should be looking at in talking about infrastructural development. The judiciary officers, some judges sit under sheds, some still write in longhand, some don't have judges' clerks who help them take down the crucial evidence. They don't have assessors. I'm sure you've been following the Oscar Pistorius trials. You see the judge sits, there are 2 assessors, and what she's been doing generally is to look at the demeanor of the witnesses, and she's forming her opinion. She's not distracted by the need to take down every single thing the prosecutor or the defense counsel or the witnesses are saying, which is what obtains here. That of its own slows down the entire process. So there is a need to continue education about what we can do to ginger up the judicial system. And talking about education, education is another important need. Nigeria from a country known for its educational prowess is suddenly beginning to struggle. Universities in the days I attended university were ranked many of them made the top 100 in the world. Today, you are looking at thousands before you see a single Nigerian university show up. And that's because, again, we didn't plan for the future. The educational policies in Nigeria have been inconsistent. One moment you are practicing 633, for another thing you are doing another system. It's inconsistent.
Policy, government policies in Nigeria so far has
generally, yes. And what that's doing, it adds, again, it's good and bad sides, because what that has led to is the proliferation of private education. Education is handled by the private sector. So from your primary to secondary to tertiary, the private sector is coming up, and they are trying to fill up this gap. But because of the expensive nature of getting education in the private schools, and of course their limited capacity, it will not meet with the yearnings of the millions of Nigerians who are thirsty and are hungry for education, which by itself is a good sign of a country that's ready to march forward. But you just frustrate them when they get to certain points and just simply can't go forward. And what is happening, that's impacting even on the lecturers. So you find that if some people are unable to get into universities, they are made to go to polytechnics, if not polytechnics, teacher training institutes, not because they love it. So our teachers are not even committed to what they're supposed to be doing. So those are challenges. We must meet with the challenges, and we must continue to work to make sure that this system is much better than before we met it.
And one of the challenges Nigerian economy has faced over the years or the period has been the issue of security. Looking at where we are coming from and what we have now, how would you describe it?
The irony of democracy, which is freedom, the freedom to choose your government in or out, as the case may be, is that it's come with a lot of thuggery, corruption, the do or die, win at all costs. Politicians have not been the best examples of what a healthy democracy should be. And this is why we're seeing politics being given a bad name in this environment. Otherwise, there's nothing wrong. Democracy is still the most peaceful way of changing changing power, moving power from one person to another. So there's a lot of beauty in it, and elsewhere where it is practiced and the will of the people truly excels, you have democracy doing good. But unfortunately in Nigeria, we really need to work on that. Perhaps the mistake came in 1999, when many good people stayed away after being numbed several decades of military rule. Just didn't believe the handing over was going to happen. And what we saw was people who are not committed to growth going into politics. And it's so difficult to dislodge them now. But they must reorientate themselves, because in the end, if we let this democracy fail, it's going to swallow up everybody. And I don't think that's what we all want. You cannot discuss this without the Chibok crisis, which is a tragedy in the annals of our history. And we're making young, innocent girls pay for bloody mindedness and all that. So it's not the sort of thing you want to bequeath to a younger generation. And in doing that, you are inadvertently going to make some people hate schooling, because they were abducted from school. And if you go to that area, many of them are out of school. We can't do that. You can't grow in one direction and find that your brothers and sisters are lagging behind. So there's an obligation on every one of us to make sure that we support one another and sort of move up together, give a helping hand and move that person forward, because you secure your own future doing that way. No different from you being in a household where you are the only superstar and everybody else is looking up towards you, and they will pull you down, they share weight. So what we must do is collectively put pressure on our politicians to make sure that they change their ways. They cannot be the direct beneficiaries of democracy and then be the greatest threat to it. They must understand what they need to do.
And so how are we going to do it going forward? Next year is the election year, and of course we're going to see a new democratic dispensation. What should we as the citizens be doing or should do to support the incoming leaders, and what are our expectations from those that are coming to take charge of the leadership?
First and foremost, it's a good thing that, as our democracy evolves, we now have two major parties, which wasn't the case before. So that's hopefully will give us a choice, because it's the competition for attention that makes politicians sit up. So hopefully, if we work that process well, it will bring about good. Secondly, we must stop being armchair critics. Many of us love our comfort too much. We talk and talk and talk. Come polling day, everybody sits at home. You're watching Premier League, you're watching tennis, you're watching whatever, anything but going out there to vote. And if your voice is not heard through your ballot, you can't bring about change. You'll just be reduced to grumbling after the event has taken place. And let's face it, once your politicians know that you're interested in what's going on, it limits their ability to be mischievous. Look at the little demonstrations that are taking place for whatever reasons we now find as part of our democratic culture. They make them, they respond. So democracy is me and you playing an active role in letting our voices heard through, I must say, always say it, constructive means. And I don't ever agree to destructive means of making your voices heard. It must be constructive. So you must go out, vote. You must go out and protest if you don't like something. The rule of law must be made central to any democracy, because you cannot talk about democracy without the rule of law. So it brings us back to the judiciary. You can't talk about the rule of law without lawyers and judges and all that. Those are institutions that must be strengthened. And Nigerians must learn to be angry, but go to court. Don't take the laws into your hands. Go to court. The judiciary must step up too. Deciding cases that should really be disposed of in a matter of months, for years, does not do anybody any good. So there's still a lot of work to be done. 15 years, counting, still a lot of work to be done, but there's hope.
That was Mr. George Etomi, former chairman, section on business law of the Nigerian Bar Association. Well, before we call it a day, how do you cope with workplace stress? Working hard should not be confused with overworking at the expense of your physical health. This is actually one of the concerns of most employers. Here are some tips on how to deal with it.
When you feel overwhelmed at work, you lose confidence and may become irritable or withdrawn. This can make you less productive and less effective on your job, and make the work seem less rewarding. If you ignore the warning signs of work stress, they can lead to bigger problems. When stress at work interferes with your ability to perform in your job, manage your personal life, or adversely impacts on your health, it's time to take action. Start by paying attention to your physical and emotional health. When your own needs are taken care of, you are stronger and more resilient to stress. Analyze your schedule, responsibilities, and daily tasks. All work and no play is a recipe for burnout. Try to find a balance between work and family life, social activities and solitary pursuits, daily responsibilities, and downtime. When it comes to satisfaction and success at work, emotional intelligence is about communicating with others in ways that draw people to you, overcome differences, repair wounded feelings, and diffuse tension and stress. Many of us make job stress worse with negative thoughts and behavior. If you can turn around these self-defeating habits, you'll find employer-imposed stress easier to handle.
And with that, I say thank you for being part of the program. You can reach us via email on businessincorporated@channelstv.com. I'm Chimezie Obi-Iwuagwu. Thank you for watching.